Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we have a very spicy donation deck. This is a deck that's been titled GLENN-VIGORATE. So the titular card is Glenn, the Voice of Calm. So this is a 1 white blue 1/3 skulk, which means it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. When it deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its power. So we're basically trying to put this into play, attack with it, and use it as a draw engine to just keep applying the pressure and dealing with whatever our opponent is doing. Pretty interesting. This is one of the Walking Dead Secret Lair cards, whatever. I've not really played with or against any of these cards before, so should be interesting. We're tucking this in a shell that's going to hopefully utilize it nicely. As you'd imagine, we have this Invigorate in there, which is a free way of pumping our Glenn and drawing a bunch of cards, which seems quite nice to me. We've got 4 Noble Hierarchs, which also pump the Glenn. And we've got a couple of Become Immense that can do that too. Which, you know, if we can get this off and draw 6 cards, well, plus 6 cards would be 7 cards total, it's going to be pretty good, right? The other spicy cards we have here, really, we have a Cold-Eyed Selkie, which is a very similar thing to Glenn, except it has Island Walk. So instead of Skulk, we have Island Walk. This also gets fetched with a Green Sun Zenith. Now, is this the best card ever printed? Certainly not. But there'll definitely be uses for it. It's an unblockable creature that can draw cards. If we can protect it a little bit, the rewards should amount on their own. Our other threat is a Chrome Host Seedshark. So we're trying to cast Become Immense. We're trying to cast Force of Will. We're trying to cast Invigorate. These are going to make us some reasonably nice and tasty creatures, right? Now, I played Chrome Host Seedshark once before and was a little bit unimpressed with it. But this shell might be a bit better for it, so we're going to see how it pans out. We've got what you'd expect to find in a blue deck. No ponders, though, actually, so a little bit unorthodox. We have 4 Brainstorms, 4 Force of Will. We've got a couple of Force of Negation, so we're really trying to make use of drawing all these extra cards. And we have a Misdirection, which is a counterspell for a counterspell, but sometimes has utility against things like Hymn to Torak and removal spells and things like that. We've got 3 Prismatic Endings, which we can obviously point at a whole bunch of different things. No Source of Plowshare's main deck, notably. We have 3 Green Sun Zenith and a small package, so we've got a couple of Ice-Fangs, a singleton Hexdrinker, which is another thing that we can just make large and try and win the game with. The Cold-Eyed Selkie, which we mentioned before, and an Uro, because, you know, we're in green-blue. We should probably have an Uro somewhere in our 75. Card is real good. And we have a singleton Dress Down as well, as a way of dealing with Urza Saga tokens. And that's pretty much the main deck. Land-wise, all our lands are just mana-producing lands. We have 1 Ancient Tomb, which is a bit of an interesting inclusion to me, because I'm not really sure what it's helping us cast, if I'm being honest. I guess it can help us power out some Green Sun Zenith or cast an early Chrome Host Seedshark. I'm not necessarily sure this is where I want to be, but we'll see. And we have a Dryad Arbor, because we're a Green Sun Zenith deck, we may as well grab that. So yeah, you have only 2 Wastelands in the deck, but they might come in handy here and there. And the rest of it is just mana. So our mana should be pretty good. We're not getting greedy with our mana base here, which is what I like to see. Some people do push it a little bit with their mana bases, I would say. But we got a load of fetches, we got basics, we got duels, we'd be fine. Sideboard-wise, we've got some things you'd expect, really. So we've got a single Deafening Silence to try and help versus the Storm matchups, along with this Force of Negation, which is also going to be brought in for that, and Reanimator. We've got some removal, so we've got 4 Plows. Obviously, it's split over different artworks here. Apologies for that, but it is what it is. So we've got 4 Swords of Plowshares when we need to remove creatures. We can sort of morph into a bit more of a bank control shell. We've got a Carpet of Flowers, which is going to help versus things like Death Shadow that are trying to smash our lands apart whilst playing islands themselves. But just against most blue decks, we're probably going to be boarding this in because it helps us sort of cheat our curve. We have a singleton Collector Ouphe we can go and find with a Green Sun Zenith to shut down a lot of the cards in Storm decks as well as 8-cast. We have an Outland Liberator, which is a bit of a funky one. It's a good way of blowing stuff up, and if you ever flip it, it's so brutal. I've been on the receiving end of that a few times, and it's not nice. We have a Tarmogoyf, again, the Green Sun Zenith target. If we just need a bit more meat in our Bant sandwich, if you want to call it that, then we have the Tarmogoyf for that. And we have 4 Endurance, which are obviously useful for graveyard decks, which are not as prevalent as they once were, but there's still loads of them all over the place. And this is also another creature if we need to morph into an aggressive deck against a control strategy. We can just board in a lot of threats, which is something I quite like. I think the way to fight control decks is usually just keep overloading them with threats. So that's pretty much the deck. It's a little bit of a spicy one. There's some tried and tested stuff in here, and there's some pretty exciting fruity things I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out. This will be my second league with Chrome Host Seedshark, so I'm excited to see if it can live up to some of the hype it got. I'm personally not that convinced, but I'm more than happy to be proved wrong. That's part of the fun of it all, really. Alright, so before we jump in, let me just remind you, if you like, comment and subscribe, it really helps me out and doesn't cost you anything. And if you would like one of your own wild and wonderful donation decks on the channel, get in touch with me via the Discord link below and we can sort something out. I'm currently doing £15 donation decks for June. I've got a fair few slots left so far, but they do fill up relatively quick, as they did last month. Alright, let's jump into a Legacy League with GLENN-VIGORATE. This is our opening hand. We're on the draw. We can go Green Sun Zenith and then an Uro on turn 2 to try and dig into our deck. We've got some interaction here. Our Misdirection is not that exciting to me though, but I think this is probably keepable. An Ancient Tomb. Okay, so what do we want here? I think we just run out this tropical island into the Dryad Arbor. This will accelerate us into an Uro next turn, then we can basically play whatever we want from that point on in the game. Obviously, Wasteland's probably less likely in an Ancient Tomb deck. There aren't many Ancient Tomb decks with Wasteland. Alright, we've got a lot of colourless mana over there. White. Okay, we're looking possibly a initiative style deck here. Sure, a Seasoned Dungeoneer. We can't really interact with that one. She is a little bit awkward. But we can attack with our Dryad Arbor if they attack with their Seasoned Dungeoneer and don't deploy a follow-up threat. So that's not the end of the world. Feeling these being Prismatic Endings and not Swords to Plowshares in a big way right now. Right, it's our turn. This Ancient Tomb, not sure that's where I want to be here. I think we are just casting an Uro. So green, blue, 1. Let's get an Uro. This will be a relatively good thing to get into play if we can manage that. But we don't have anything in our graveyard yet, so we're going to have to work for that. And our opponent doesn't seem to be giving us any Prismatic Ending targets. We're trying to draw a Brainstorm, really, so we can get a bit deeper into our deck and replace some of these less exciting cards. Do I want a Flooded Strand or do I want a Snow-Covered Forest? If our opponent is Red-White Initiative, there's a possibility they have a Mages of the Moon. So I would like to put in this Flooded Strand so that we can at least go and fetch a basic in response. We got a basic in hand, so we can operate on 2 basics if our opponent does randomly play a Mages of the Moon. It's unlikely, but it's possible, and it doesn't cost us anything to play around it either. So our opponent is going into Lost Well. So they're clearly looking for something a bit more. If they have another creature to deploy here, then our Dryad Arbor is going to be unable to get in the red zone, which is a bit of a pity, but we'll see how it pans out. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So they are red-white. If they play Fable of the Mirror Breaker, we can kill their guy. Okay, so they're playing a Plains. So they're unlikely to be playing a Fable of the Mirror Breaker this turn. Touch of the Spirit Realm. Are they just doing this to exile our Dryad Arbor? A little bit rude, but sure. We'll leave this uncracked because we're looking to draw a Brainstorm. We did not draw a Brainstorm. We kind of just draw nothing. We could touch the Spirit Realm to get back our Dryad Arbor. It's not great, is it? But I think that's probably where we're at here. So, white, blue, green. Prismatic Ending this. We don't have a 4th colour available in our deck. X is currently 2. Yep, that should work. We get our Dryad Arbor back. Like, if we steal the initiative, we don't steal it for long either, which is not spectacular. Okay, so Fable the Mirror Breaker on top. They've gone into the stash here so they can cast red spells. Be very surprised if we win this game. Fable the Mirror Breaker, sure. Okay, so this gives us a window to take the initiative using our Prismatic Ending. Noble Hierarch. So I think we are on Get rid of the Shaman token. Deploy Hierarch. Go to attacks. Get 2 mighty points of damage in here. Am I thinking about Swords of Plowshares on this? I don't think it's necessary, to be honest. Alright. We'll go and get ourselves a plains here, I think. Get the island off of this. So play the Windswept Heath. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So if a creature of ours dies, we can put this into play. Our opponent's probably sandbagging a removal spell for our Uro. Okay, they discarded a single City of Traitors. Yep, we're taking 5 or we're taking 6 here. We're taking 6. A Fury. Fury's actually not that bad for us if they want to pitch cast it. Because it'll take 2 cards, but it'll give us the fuel for our Uro. Yep, they get the initiative back here. They can make a spooky skeleton. And they have lethal damage next turn. Gonna be tough here. There's the Fury. It's hard cast rather than pitch cast, which is obviously less good for us. So we're going to lose both of our creatures, which is going to allow us to play an Uro. The problem is we can't block these 2 creatures. So we're dead to those 2 creatures. So we're going to need to find something off the top. I'm not really sure what we can find here. I think it's a case of just take a draw and then see if we're conceding. I suspect we probably are. We have any plow to help us out. Chrome Host Seedshark. Does that do anything here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But we need... we can... If we play Chrome Host Seedshark off an Ancient Tomb, we're dead. Yeah, I think we just need to pack this one in and go to the sideboard and put in some Swords to Plowshares. Alright. I would very much like these Swords to Plowshares, please. That seems like a relatively good one. Dress Down can stop their things for a turn, which is pretty nice. I don't think we're going to need Misdirection here. I don't think we're going to want these Force of Negations either. Force of Will is still fine though. So we've got these. I wouldn't mind having a bit more beef. I don't think we're going to want the Cold-Eyed Selkie. That's not ever going to be unblockable. Chrome Seedshark is fine. These are good. Early creatures like Hexdrinker is nice. The Prismatic Endings are looking pretty bad there, so we can cut those. That gives us 1 more slot, so we're probably looking at putting in another creature. Are we looking for a Collector Ouphe to mess with... sorry, not a Collector Ouphe, an Outland Liberator to mess with their Fables and things? I think that's probably good enough. The other question is, do we need Become Immense? If there's going to be a race, that might be quite helpful. But some of our cards aren't necessarily going to end up in the bin anyway. Things like Greenstone Zenith go back into our library. We're not a Ponder deck, so we're not fueling the Become Immense as much. Would I like an additional endurance instead of this Become Immense? I think so. We just want more beef, I think. I don't mind having one of these as a nice surprise. Alright, we'll submit like this. Let's see if we can get a Glenn into play. Okay. We have a Force of Will we can't cast. We have triple Hierarch. I think we can do better than this. Is this better? How good is Protection for Everything? Pretty good, but the rest of our hand is kind of bad. But we have a 1-drop, which then we can protect. Well, not protect, but we can clear the way for with our plow. Is that good enough? Interesting choice. I think we'll put, if we keep this one, we'll put a Tundra back. Because we want Fetch Down to go in the bin, just to fuel our Become Immense and Uro. Is this one good enough? I don't think it's good enough. But what sort of hand are we really looking for? Like, Swords to Plowshares is one of the cards we are looking for in our deck. The other cards are things like Force of Will, but the lower we go down, the worse Force of Will becomes, because it costs us more of our resources as a percentage. 4 lands, 2 spells. That's not a lot. But one of these spells really wants us to pummel a load of mana into it. Oh dear. I guess we can get a Dryad Arbor with a Windswept Heath as well. We'll keep this and send back the Tundra. We'll begin on the Trop and deploy our threats. Next time we'll play out Windswept Heath and we'll probably go and get ourselves a Dryad Arbor, or we'll just start pumping our guy. So 3 of them needs to get it protected from instants, but that doesn't protect it from Solitude or Fury or Touch of the Spirit Realm. So we need to put a lot of mana into it before it actually does the things we want. Is this going to be a chalice? It is a chalice. Okay. Yep. I thought that might happen. Let's crack this for... getting a basic plains is awkward as a thing here. I think we're just getting the island. We'll level this guy up. We'll level this guy up. And we'll swing. At least our creatures are protected from Source to Plowshares, but our opponent's got a bunch of other removal spells. Okay, are we seeing a guy? Seasoned Engineer? An Archon of Emeria. This is a 2/3. Alright. This Ice-Fang is not quite where we want to be, is it? So this can get us our basic forest for our Ice-Fang. I think we'll just level this up twice. We are winning the race here. 4/4 is better than a 2/3. Okay. 4 mana. No, 3 mana. And a red and another red. This is the Fury then. Yeah, the hardcast Fury is going to beat us, I suspect. Kind of wasted all of our mana into this Hexdrinker. That's now not going to do anything. It did get us a decent chunk of damage, but this Chalice of Void is just going to wreck us. So, we probably want this one. And then we'll pass. We won't have 3 other snow permanents here. I don't think we're blocking here. I think we're just taking this hit. It's a lot, but such is life. Cavern of Souls. An Archon. I'm playing another Archon. Get ourselves an Ice-Fang. Draw a card. It's another land. Let's crack this. Get a Dryad Arbor. Do you want a Dryad Arbor? I think we do. This one can get basic when if we want it to. Another land. So we still don't have enough to make this Death Touchy. We're going to have to throw something under the bus. What is the other basic we have in our deck is the plains. So this will get us the plains, and then we want to get the forest. Okay, so we're chump blocking with a Dryad Arbor and taking 4 this turn, I think. Yeah, this Chalice has just completely just undone us. Touch the Spirit Realm on the Fury. Yeah, we're not winning this game. Yeah, we got bodied pretty hard there. We did draw pretty horribly, though. We played a Chalice and we drew a Source Plowshares, then we just drew lands. Sometimes that's going to happen. Maybe we should have kept in some Prismatic Endings just for the Chalice of the Void. But we did have the 3 Green Sun Zenith and the guy that we can shoot it for to blow that up. So it's not like we were just completely cold to this. But yeah, sometimes you're not going to get there. And even if we did have some ponders in our deck, it's not going to help us in this situation because of the Chalice. Alright, let's go to round 2. Alright, our opening hand doesn't have any lands. Let's mulligan. All the Glens. This one doesn't play either. So we're going to have to send this one away. Not a great start. We love drawing this Dryad Arbor, don't we? I guess we keep. 2 cards have got to go. We'll get rid of the white card that we can't cast. Are we supposed to get rid of the Glen or keep the Glen? I think we're supposed to get rid of the Glen and try and fumble our way through like this. Right, so we've got Dryad Arbor. Wasteland is not going to be our friend. An island. That's not a wasteland. Just a basic island, though. Interesting. No pond. Okay, so we found a Brainstorm. We don't actually want to cast this Brainstorm just yet. Let's get our 1 point of damage in. If we Force of Will, we have to pitch the Force of Will. We can't afford to lose this Brainstorm when we're very much seeking a game plan here. An end turn Brainstorm. That makes me think our opponent is a combo deck that wants to utilize its mana fully on its next turn. Or they are mana screwed. Those are the 2 general options that I reckon we're looking at here. A Preordain. We still don't know if they found a land off their Brainstorm or not, or even if that's what they were looking for. They're correct to cast their cantrips. Okay, so 1 top, 1 bottom. Another island. This could be High Tide. Kind of getting High Tide vibes. Alright, so we have a Misty Rainforest now. Let's cast this Brainstorm. We do not want this Wasteland. Is our opponent thinking about misstepping this, perhaps? That'd be really annoying for us. I don't think we fight over it. Preordain usually is a card for combo decks. Alright, so what are we looking at? This Wasteland can go away. I don't mind this Prismatic Ending. So we're going to float this Prismatic Ending on top. And then we can make a decision about whether or not we want it based on our opponent's next turn and then crack the fetch land. If we can play this Seedshark before we have to Force of Will, then we'll be able to get a very potent threat to try and close the game out with. But we'll see how this transport. Another end of turn Brainstorm. Yeah, it definitely feels like we're in combo town here. An Ancient Tomb. We might be looking at mono blue Omnitel. Show and tell. I suspect this is going to resolve. They've got 6 cards in hand. They might just have another show and tell. In that case, I'll let it go. A ponder, sure. So we want to crack our fetch land. We don't need a Prismatic Ending here. Wouldn't mind the Wasteland too much, but that's further down, so we're going to have to let that one go. Just crack this now. We'd like a white source, but do we need to show our opponent the white source? We don't have any double white pips here. So I think we're probably getting... I think it probably should still be the Tundra. Actually, no, it should be the... Yeah, it should be the Tundra here. Yeah, we get Tundra. So, what are we looking for here? A dress down. I don't hate that one. That's quite an interesting thing to put in off of a show and tell. We'll play out this Flooded Strand. And we'll crack this Flooded Strand for... Do we think our opponent's going to be back to basics? We're not beating back to basics anyway, right? So we should just lean into the other side of things. Let's get another trop here, I think. Let's go attacks with our Dryad Arbor. Getting that 1 point damage. We'll deploy this Chrome Host Seedshark. Right, let's have a little shark. And we have a dress down. If they cast show and tell, we can put that in and maybe that will be useful. It's not really going to stop the Emrakul because that gets a cast trigger, which just ruins us, but we'll see. I don't think our opponent's supposed to counter this. They're very much the aggro, I would say, here. They're the one who's trying to execute their plan and we're trying to stop them. So I think their counter spells, if they have them, should be used to protect what they're doing, unless they're really nowhere near going off and they think that this Chrome Host Seedshark will clock them, but I'm not sure about that. Right, our opponent's found a Scalding Tarn. So they might be on a sneak attack deck. Okay. Okay, so they're not on mono blue Omnitel, which they might have been. They're going to cast a sneak attack. They have a Lotus Petal and a monster to put in. If they have a Lotus Petal and a monster to put in, then we're in trouble. Or a Sooner Spirit Guide. Okay, so we've got a turn, is what you're telling me. So we have a Wasteland. How useful is a Wasteland in this situation? It's not unhelpful, but it's not really going to make a big difference here either. Let's attack with both of our guys, get a little bit of damage in. We don't really care about this Ancient Tomb. We care about other red sources on top of it. I think we play this out so we can play around a Spell Pierce. So our opponent might only have 1 red source of mana here. So our plan is to dress down in response to the sneak attack activation. Now if they drop a second red source, that's awkward for us. Just get ourselves a little shark. We can also turn this into a guy if we need to. This should stop our opponent from having hasty guys. I believe this takes away the haste. And the other abilities too, so it's a relatively good 1-turn counter for this. And we can represent 5 damage next turn if we get to convert this incubator token. Alright. 3 mana here. A Cunning Wish. So this is going to go and get them a counterspell of some description. Curious what they get for 1 mana. A Flusterstorm. That doesn't work here because this is an enchantment. So what they can do is just not put anything in with sneak attack and then have it ready for next turn. So we're going to need to find something to stop them on the following turn, which is not ideal. Right, so there's our little incubator token. This is the first one of these I've ever made. Didn't make a single one when I played the Seedshark last time. Right, let's go and get ourselves a card. An Ancient Tomb. Not useful here. Let's see if they put it in. They shouldn't put it in. They should just say no. They did put it in. Oh, it still has haste. That's interesting. That does put us to 2. That's not nothing, is it? But at least we don't lose all of our permanents. That's... They should still have to sacrifice it, right? Because the haste and the sacrifice clause are on the sneak attack, not the creature. I think that's why it still has haste here. What's this? A ponder, sure. So we need to kill our opponent. We are a deck with Invigorate in. We're a deck with Become Immense in. So these things will win us the game if we can find them. That's 3 cards. A Noble Hierarch gives us 2, 4, 5, 6. So that's not good enough. We could Brainstorm into double Hierarch. That would do it. Alright, so we'll sacrifice our dress down. And they'll sacrifice their Emrakul. They'll shuffle in their Emrakul. We will transform our artifact into a guy. Let's have a look. Bit of a beastie. Alright. A Brainstorm. So we could Brainstorm into double Hierarch here. That would win us the game. Or into a Pump Spell. Let's make a token. These are okay for stopping Annihilator triggers. If we can't finish our opponent off, we have to hold something back to block. So this needs to find us a Pump Spell or double Hierarch. We're obviously going to throw back this Ancient Tomb. Oh, we're getting a Force of Will here. Okay, I think that's a very good heads-up Force of Will there, truth be told. Okay, so we can't stop our opponent from getting another turn here, right? So we need to hold back our flying blocker here. So we can only attack for 3 here, which means our opponent can activate their Ancient Tomb. But the Ancient Tomb isn't what we're worried about, it's their red pips. So I think we bash for 3 this turn, put our opponent to 3, and then if they Emrakul us, we can at least block it. And we can sacrifice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 permanents, and then swing for 2, which won't actually be enough. So, oh, we're supposed to play the Ancient Tomb so that we don't die to Emrakul. Oh my god, that's a bit of a punt. Oh dear. There's another Emrakul, we lose the game here. If it was a Grizzled Brown, we definitely lose the game. Alright, so this is going to draw them a bunch of cards. Actually, no, I can't draw them a bunch of cards, right? But it will gain them 7 life. And then they draw 7 cards if they want to. Interesting. Right, so we have to block here. Yeah, we nearly punted there. If they'd have had the Emrakul, we would have lost the game because we didn't play our Ancient Tomb. Should do the maths in your main phase, not in... Okay, it looks like they're just going to let this guy go and not draw 7 cards. That seems wise to me. Let's transform our artifact. So now we're more incentivized to use our Wasteland on their Ancient Tombs because they've got more life to work with here. This does not add to our damage count. We attack for 4 instead of 3 here. We don't have any flyer blockers. Are we supposed to Wasteland our opponent here? Is this Ancient Tomb going to be useful to them? I'm unsure about that one. So now if they have an Emrakul, we are just dead. So I don't think we're supposed to play the Ancient Tomb now. The question is, are we sacrificing this Wasteland on their Ancient Tomb? Like, there's one more turn left in this game either way, I think. So I suppose they're not technically dead if they don't activate their Ancient Tomb. Alright, Brainstorm's pretty big news. Any monster wins them the game here. Alright. Our opponent, having cast that Brainstorm, should know if they're dead or not at this point. I guess they have a fetch down and they have one more turn, potentially. We got another cantrip. Another cantrip. Do your worst, opponent. They shuffled their library. That's good for us. It was very likely they were going to do that, considering they just Brainstormed. Alright. Guess we're on attacks. Opponent gets one more turn. Fetch land. And pass. It's your turn to kill us, opponent. They can't activate Ancient Tomb, but they don't need to win the game. They have a Flusterstorm. Oh, is this show and tell? Okay. We'll say no, we'd rather have this to Brainstorm with. Omniscience. Oh dear. Do they have anything to go with this? a Cunning Wish. This should be the game because they go and get the thing that lets them get 2 creatures into hand, and they put an Emrakul in their hand, they cast the Emrakul, get an extra turn, and they annihilate us into the Stone Age. Firemind's Foresight. Okay, that's an interesting one. Our opponent wants to show us more things. Maybe they just don't have that one. So this gets them another Cunning Wish and some other stuff. There's a Cunning Wish. There's the Impulse. Okay, so they don't actually just have the green thing that lets them find the guys. They have to actually dig for it. Alright. To be fair, a Grizzlebrand does win in the game too because we can't attack into it profitably. Right, so there's an Impulse. Have you got the thing? There's Brainstorm. Clearly they don't have it yet. Our opponents used a lot of their clock as well, so I'm not upset with this situation. There's a Scalding Tarn. Not sure that's the most helpful one, and none of their spells cost mana. They're cracking this to shuffle away the Brainstorm. That means they might have another dig effect. A Ponder. They shuffle their library off the Ponder. A Cunning Wish, sure. An Intuition. Why didn't they just get that in the first place? Why do they have to go through all those loops? They could have just gone and done this, got an Emrakul, unless they don't have enough guys to fetch? I don't know. So they can put Emrakul and 2 Intuitions here, and then just keep replaying this loop until they get the thing they want. Okay, so they do have 3 Emrakuls here. They've used a lot of their clock. I'm going to let the clock burn down. We're playing a bit of a brew, so I'll take the little edges I can get. Right, so they're getting their Emrakul trigger. And then they get to another turn. They've burned quite a lot of their time. They've used 15 minutes for one game, so I'm happy to let them just come and kill us here. Sure, an Emrakul for good, goes around for good measure. Get the overkill. Yep, sacrifice all our things and let them bash us. So our opponent pretty much took 2 minutes off their clock that they didn't have to there. Interesting. So, what are we looking at? Outland Liberator can blow up the thing. Force of Negation and Dress Down are both useful here. We're not looking for endurances. Swords to Plowshares have some text. But I think if we're getting to try and Swords to Plowshares their guy, we've probably already lost. Carpet Flowers is interesting to me as well. What here is bad? Misdirection can help us fight over counter wars, so I don't hate that. Prismatic Ending here is pretty bad. We can fetch around Blood Moon, so I'm not going to try and play around Blood Moon. So I think it's just the endings out and these in. In this case of, do we want Carpet of Flowers? Do we want Carpet of Flowers? Maybe? Like, it kind of does a very similar thing to Noble Hierarch, but it doesn't buff our guys, and that's kind of like one of our key synergies. I think we do want like the Become Immenses here, because that allows us to actually win the game a little bit quicker. No, I don't think we want the carpets here. Like, our opponent can not have very many islands in play. I don't think that's really what this game is about. Do we want the Tarmogoyf just to have the thing that beats down? Is that going to be better than Ice-Fang? Ice-Fang does pitch to our blue spells. Uro might be slow here. Let's have a Tarmogoyf. Just as a threat, we can try and close the game as soon as possible. Alright, we've got a counter spell, but we don't have the way of casting our spells. We can cast a turn 2 Chrome Host Seedshark. Is that good? Is the question. Counter spell, Chrome Host Seedshark, start making some guys. If we find a green pip, that's pretty useful. I think we do keep this. Like, we've got Force of Negation, Force of Will type stuff going on. I would have liked a better opening play than just Tundra Go, but I think it's okay. Right, we'll lead out with a Tundra, make our opponent suspect things like Misstep and Spell Pierce from us. Scalding Tarn, I imagine we're going to see this cracked for some kind of... Oh no, no cantrip. Interesting. Let's try the Shark. That's what we came here to do. Again, I don't think our opponent should be countering this. They should be trying to win the game. Alright. I would like another blue card. We're cracking a Scalding Tarn. Are we going to see a Show and Tell here? I suspect we are. So the reason we're using the Force of Will here is because the Force of Negation is something we might be able to cast next turn from hand. And if we make a 5 power guy, that's also pretty good. Now our opponent's got 5 cards in hand. One of those is obviously a big monster. But they could have Force of Will blue cards go alongside it. If they don't know, we're in an okay-ish spot. Our opponent is paying costs. I think we've lost the game. So if we'd have pitched the Force of Negation, we could have the Ice-Fang to put in off the show and tell. But if our opponent gets to put anything in off the show and tell, they're going to win the game. That's just how this works. So it looks like our opponent's got a Force of Will of their own. Pitching a Cunning Wish. What big monster is it? Let's see. I guess we'll get a free Hexdrinker. An Omniscience. And an Emrakul. That's us done. Sure. Yeah. It was a bit awkward. Like, we had a counter spell, we had the interaction, but our opponent just had protection. If we'd have had another blue spell, we would have been able to get through, because our opponent's only got 1 card in hand. So it's unlikely they would be able to do anything with that. I guess they could have a Daze, but they probably would have used the Daze first up here anyway, rather than pitching 2 cards. So I imagine if we'd have drawn a second blue card, we'd have been alright. Yep, that's round 2 done. Let's go to round 3. Let's see if we can get a win on the board. Our opponent is displaying a 61 card deck. Now, I've played this gambit a few times about whether or not that means they're a Oops or Spells deck or not. Now, our hand is fine, but it definitely can't beat an Oops or Spells deck. I think we're going to mulligan. Right, so we got a Force of Will. We got some redraws in here. I like this hand. I'm going to put the Become Immense back. This is a better one. Let's see if our opponent is on the Oops or Spells or not. A basic swamp. They are not on Oops or Spells. We're getting Thought Seized. Alright, that's... They're taking our Prismatic Ending. That's interesting. This is an interesting choice here. We can play the Windswept Heath around an opposition agent, or we could save it for a Brainstorm. I think I want to save it for a Brainstorm. We should hopefully be able to thread the needle around an opposition agent if the time comes for that. A basic forest, okay. This could be like a Newton Elves type list. So we can do a Brainstorm here, or we can do an Ice-Fang. Now our hand is pretty reasonable, so I'm more inclined to do an Ice-Fang here. An island, okay. We're looking at some sort of bug deck. Now the problem we have is they can just hard cast an opposition agent. Are we supposed to let that go through or not? We do need to start hitting some more land drops though. Maybe this is the time to cast a Brainstorm. Do we want to rely on Force of Will making sure we get through? I think I'd rather try and Brainstorm than do the opposition agent. Okay, what we got here? Assassin's Trophy on our tropical island. Okay, we'll search for a basic land card. Do you want this basic island? I think is probably where we're at here. Misdirection is kind of interesting. Probably just going to be a good card to pitch, is the problem. We're probably making a Seedshark next turn, so I don't think we need this Hierarch. So put this Windswept Heath on top. We'll draw the Heath and then deploy the Shark. And then maybe we can get some big ol' Phyrexian tokens. Alright, let's go and get some basics, I suppose. Although if they've got Assassin's Trophy, are we supposed to not get basics, right? Maybe we get a Tundra and a Forest. It's interesting information they've given us there, because we don't want the Assassin's Trophies to go after our lands. I reckon we'll get a Tundra here and deploy the Shark. If this can stick, that would be great. Brainstorm. Sure. Our opponent could be on something like a Lurin as well. Can we get the Shark? We got the Shark. Okay, so we have Force of Will and Misdirection. That's going to be how we're trying to win this game. Just make some large Shark things. If our opponent doesn't cast any spells, then that's not really going to help us out. Grief. They're evoking a Grief. I think we will make ourselves a 5/5. I can reanimate this. They're casting a Thought Seize. Right, let's just go all in on this, right? Let's fire this back at them, so they have to lose their last card in hand. Oh wow, they're scooping to that. All right, that's screenshotable for me. That's a great one. Okay. Sideboarding. We don't know a great deal about what our opponent's doing. We've seen Bug colours. We've seen Thoughtseize. We've seen Grief. So maybe it's like a Bug mid-rangey type thing. What is going to be useful for that? They showed us that their graveyard is something they might be doing things with, so I'm not opposed to having these endurances in. They did take our Prismatic Ending, which makes me think that they got stuff that we want to worry about with this. The Misdirection is interesting, because they're probably going to be relying on removal a fair bit if they've got Assassin's Trophy in their main deck. Interesting. I don't know if we're going to want Dress Down. It can stop a Grief thing, but it's also a little bit awkward for us. How much do we want our pump spells here? Do we need our pump spells? Like, Uro's going to be great to grind against their discard, so I think that's good. Seedshark's pretty nice. Maybe the Force of Negation can go. We sort of bulk up on threats. Maybe drop one of the Become Immenses. Do we want a Tarmogoyf? Do we want Plows? The question is very hard to fit all the things we've got in our deck. So maybe I'd rather just have a Plow than a Misdirection. As cute as a Misdirection is, I think we're probably looking at Plows as a better thing. Maybe we don't need all of these endurances and we can have 3 Plows. Sure, we'll try something like this. We don't really have that much information, but our opponent gave me the impression they'd be trying to grind a little bit. Oh, wow. We've got the Dream here. It's only a Dream, right? Are they just going to Thoughtseize us and take the weird card? Right, let's go and get ourselves a Tropical Island, I think. Jam this sweet little Noble Hierarch. Then we can jam a Cold-Eyed Selkie that's probably going to be unblockable because of Island Walk. It can draw us 2 cards a turn if we can keep it alive. What's happening here? A Kraken Polluted Delta. We have double Brainstorm to fix our hand if they don't do that sort of stuff. If they do manipulate our hand with discard. Like, I'm not casting this, right? I'm leaning out on a basic here. This doesn't help us cast Uro. We kind of want these fetch lands for Brainstorms. I think we're going to cast this. Green, blue, white. Cold-Eyed Selkie is in. Alright. If we can get an attack with this, it's 2 cards. That's a ridiculous amount of card advantage. Now, I've already seen removal from our opponent. So, Pernicious Deed. Okay, they can't crack it this turn, though. That's pretty exciting. Would I rather cantrip with a Noble Hierarch or have a Noble Hierarch? That's an interesting question, isn't it? I think we'll start on a Brainstorm, though. I don't think we want this one. And we could just Prismatic Ending this deed. So I think we'll get rid of the Hierarch. And then let's crack this. If we get ourselves a Tundra. No, we want another Tropical Island, don't we, actually? For if we get to Uro stuff. Let's cast this, tagging this. So we want white mana, green mana, blue mana. Get rid of the Pernicious Deed. Attack for 2, draw 2 cards. Oh, so gross. Cold-Eyed Selkie doing it. Yes, I would like to use the ability that draws me 2 cards. Look at that. How can you keep up with this Cold-Eyed Selkie card advantage? Sylvan Library. Sure. Not as good as Cold-Eyed Selkie, right? A Brainstorm, sure. I think you're supposed to cast the Brainstorm first there, so you have more information about how you're playing your turn out. So the reason I didn't want the Noble Hierarch there is because I didn't want to put all our eggs in the Cold-Eyed Selkie basket. Drawing 2 cards a turn with it is plenty good enough. Oh my god, we've got a Glenn as well. Right, let's just attack with the Selkie. Draw some cards. Yes to the ability. Alright, now what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? Do want to play out this Glenn. It's not great having Glenn and the Cold-Eyed Selkie at the same time, if I'm being perfectly honest here. So we've got 9 cards in hand, though. Kind of makes me feel like we're supposed to play something out. Maybe we'll drop the Seedshark here. Green, blue, white. Let's drop this and play a fetch land. So we've got ability to brainstorm fetch land if we need to, using the Noble Hierarch. Reasonable situation to be in. Right. They put one of the cards on top of the library, they're going to put the other one, or they're going to pay 4. They kept a card. It's polluted Delta, so they can fetch away the card they didn't want. An Uro. That is fine. We can plow it when the time comes. We've got a better draw engine than Uro. It's called Cold-Eyed Selkie. What a time to be alive. A Ponder, that's fine too. Black and a green. A Gurmag Angler. I think we're going to brainstorm in response so we get maximum amount of information before we work out how we're handling this guy. Oh my god. Oh, that's so gross. We don't want this Dryad Arbor, that's for sure. And do we need 2 land drops here? I don't think we need 2 land drops. We can put back one of them. I think it's probably the Savannah here. We'll let this come into play. Get Tundra here. I think we are supposed to plow. Do we care about the Gurmag Angler though? I don't think we do. We're drawing so many cards. Let's cast Noble Hierarch. Let's go to attacks. Let's draw 3 cards. Oh, this is great. I'm enjoying this round. 3 damage, 3 cards. Yes, please. Hot diggity damn, that's a lot of cards. We've got this one. Wowzers, trousers. I'm gonna have to go to clean up here, right? I don't think we cast the Glenn, and we can just hold up. I guess we don't need to hold up Force of Will. We kind of want to make some Ice-Fangs though. We've got 9 cards. We've got so many cards here. We're going to clean up. I guess we'll get rid of Invigorate because it's not blue, and a Brainstorm because we kind of have cards coming out the wazoo here. It does mean that we can't do emergency Brainstorm, but we do have 2 Ice-Fangs that we can drop. Him to Turak. I think we'll do this pitching a Seedshark. Just make a 5/5. Just get this game won. Sick. Absolutely sick. Loving it. Alright, we got a win, and in incredible style. On the board, winning the game with Cold-Eyed Selkie. Pretty sweet. Alright, let's go to round 4. We're on the play. We can make a turn 2 Glenn with Force of Will backup. Actually, can we... No, we need white mana, right? No, this gets... We need white and blue mana. This only gets us... that's kind of awkward. I think we keep, though. Maybe we're not supposed to Green Sun Zenith for 1. We Green Sun Zenith on turn 2 for Noble Hierarch. Alternatively, we can just make a turn 2 Chrome Host Seedshark. That's probably fine. And then use the Glenn to pitch to one of our forces. If we're not pitching the other force, we'll see how the game sort of pans out, really. So we're going to want a blue source here. So I think we're getting Tropical Island to do our Green Sun. Go and get our little Arbor. So we've got turn 2 Chrome Host Seedshark. If we can then deploy a Force of Will, we're going to be laughing. Chrome Mox. Yep. What are we looking at here? An Animate Dead. Okay, so we're on a... They're targeting themselves with Unmask to put a Grizzlebrand into their graveyard. Okay. And then we get to Force of Will this. I think we're going to use the Force of Negation here. Because if we can... The Force of Will is slightly more flexible in case they hardcast a Grief or something. And also this will give us a 5/5 off the Seedshark. So drawing a blue card would be great. Not a blue card. This Wasteland not doing anything for us either. But I think we still play out the Wasteland here and hold the fetch land for Force of, for Brainstorms. So let's go 1, blue 1. Make a little guy, pass a turn. Alright, a land. That's fine. Now can we draw a blue card? We did not draw a blue card. Alright, so we'll play out this snow-covered island. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So next turn we can hard cast a Force of Will. So we need to fade one more turn of our opponent's draws, and then we've got a Force of Will ready to go. Reanimation spell. Okay, we don't get to hold up the Force of Will anymore. That's a bit upsetting. A Misty Rainforest. Sure. Only drawing lands. Not ideal. But we're making Reanimate less and less viable as a draw. And Invigorate. Are we casting this? I think so. I'll cast on this one, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Make a guy here. Pump our thing. This is 7. And this transforms into whatever. Do we want to transform it now? No, I don't think we do. Just hold that for a Brainstorm just in case. Because this can still attack because it transforms. It doesn't leave the battlefield and then come in again. So it won't have Summoning Sickness. It's just like Delver when it flips. So we have lethal here. Oh no. Oh no. Collective Brutality. Alright. They're killing our little guy. Right, I guess we do a Brainstorm first to see if we can find a pump spell. It's kind of a pump spell, right? We don't really want the Hierarch here. I don't want the Misty Rainforest either. We'll crack this. Go and get ourselves a Tundra. We'll try out this Brainstorm. See if we can find any more way of defending ourselves. Since we're not killing our opponent's turn. Dress Down is a pretty good defensive spell. Not opposed to that one. Is it better on top of our library? No, because if they have Archon of Cruelty. Oh, they can't get Archon of Cruelty, right? The one thing they can put into play is Grizzlebrand. Do we care about that? I don't think so. Because we just have Dress Down on top of our library then. So put this on top. And the Dress Down on top. And deploy this one. We'll transform this one. Go to attacks, put our opponent to 1. This way, if our opponent puts a Grizzlebrand into play, we can get rid of its lifelink using the Dress Down, and they can't discard us. I'm not sure how they would discard us, but what do they find here? Exhume. Okay, so we have played quite nicely around this. Let's just cast this and show them they're dead. No lifelink. Sure, we got game 1 versus what looks to be Mono Black Reanimator, because the Collective Brutality is a bit of a giveaway. I would like Endurances. Collector Ouphe has a bit more text than it normally does in these sorts of matchups. I don't hate Swords to Plowshares. I like these cards. A whole bunch of stuff is good. I don't think we're going to have room for Collector Ouphe thinking about it. Misdirection can misdirect some Thoughtseize action, but that's not actually that useful a lot of the time, so I don't think we need that one. The Ice-Fang, I don't think... Hexdrinker can provide a clock. This isn't an Euro game, right? The Euro is going to be way too slow to do anything. Prismatic Ending is not going to be useful here. Do you want Hexdrinker? Want Invigorates? I don't think we want Invigorate. We can keep one Become Immense though. Reason being is we don't want to give our opponent life just to draw cards necessarily. Or do we? Maybe we do. I don't know. So like the things we're bringing in are just better, right? To try and make it. We don't need a specific way of winning. We just need to not lose. So I don't think we actually want those. Glenn is pretty reasonable. This can block a Grizzlebrand. Don't think we need a Hexdrinker here. We've got 2 more cuts to find if we want to have all of these in. Threats that draw us cards as they pressure is pretty tasty, to be honest. Aren't we just saying let's hope that they can't get creatures into play? Maybe we don't want all 4 plows. Maybe we just want 2. We can trim a Seedshark here. Right, let's go for that. The Ancient Tomb actually coming in relatively clutch sometimes, it seems. More so than I thought it was going to at the start. This is going to be a difficult game, but we're on the play for the 3rd game, so that's kind of nice. This doesn't have any way of interacting with our opponent. We need to... Okay, this one does have a way of interacting, and we have a turn 2 Glenn. This seems fine. We'll get rid of one of our Windswept Heaths. Our plan is Noble Hierarch into Glenn with Force of Negation to steady the ship. Is this going to be good enough? Probably not. But it's what we've got. A Thoughtseize. Alright, opponent. We might have to do a Brainstorm on turn 1 instead, depending on if our opponent can produce a creature. So they could Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate type thing. And then we'd be dead. And that'd be sad. A Grief. Right, we're losing another card. What are you going to go for this time? A Noble Hierarch. Okay. So they've left us with counter magic. It's interesting. I think we'll play out this fetch land. Just in case for some reason we need a basic. Well, that doesn't fetch a basic blue land, does it? But I guess it fetches green, which lets us green some Zenith for things. Is this a hard cast? Oh, okay, they're on the Duke plan into the old Seasoned Dungeoneer. I see. Swords to Plowshares. Not unhappy to see that one. I think our plan here is get our opponent to forge onto the Seasoned Dungeoneer, then we plow it in response, and then we get a Dryad Arbor and take the initiative. Doesn't look like our opponent's going to be messing with our mana base, so just get Tundra here. Plow this little guy. Say no to Seasoned Dungeoneers. And then we'll get a Dryad Arbor, and hopefully... Oh no, what is this? Another one. A Grief. A hard cast Grief. Okay. That's a bit awkward. It's going to get a Dryad Arbor. We need to find a way of getting rid of this guy. Otherwise we can hold up Force of Negation, but the Undercity is going to tick up and kill us at some point. Address down. Right, our opponent might not attack. I assume we're just going to get trapped. Or they go to Arena and just kill our Dryad Arbor if they're not attacking. But I think just doming us for 5 is probably a good place to be here. What is this? Let's take our beats from the old Grief. Oh no, they're not doing anything with the Grief. Do I want to cast a Dress Down end of turn? I don't think so. We'll hold it as a blue card. A Wasteland. Okay, I think we are going to Wasteland our opponent off of white mana sources here. Swords to Plowshares on our little guy. How important is our little guy? It's stopping our opponent attacking us from 3 for 3 every turn. Let's keep our guy around. Like, we are behind here, for sure. They can hardcast a Grief here, and that's going to be real bad for us. Passageway Seer. Okay, this means they can start attacking with their Grief now. Yep, Throne of the Dead 3. Yeah, we're done there. Alright, we definitely want all of our plows in here. So I have another one of those. Do you want anything else here? I don't think so. We just want the 4 plows. I guess the Seedshark, maybe we can drop another one of those. Sure, let's try this. We have some interaction with their graveyard. I think we'll keep this. Get us a tropical island. Noble Hierarch. So we've got endurance if they do a graveyard shenanigans. If they do initiative shenanigans, we don't have anything for that right now. A Lotus Petal, sure. A Thoughtseize, sure. Probably Brainstorm. So I think I take that. Unless they have like a Dark Ritual reanimate line right now. In which case it's the endurance. But the fact they're taking a while about it means they probably don't have that line. A plow on our poor little guy. Very rude. I guess we're doing Noble Hierarch into Wasteland our opponent's mana. A little bit sketchy, but we've got the Force of Negation now that our opponent doesn't know about, so we might be able to blow them out. And we've got Brainstorm next turn. Alright. Okay, we found a land that doesn't actually help us right now. I think we'll put Endurance on top. I guess, actually, we're not playing out this Ancient Tomb this turn anyway. So I think we leave that on top. And then one of our Endurances. Probably Endurance, then Ancient Tomb. And I think we are attacking for an almighty 1 here. A powerful attack. Are we supposed to force this? I think we are. Let's force this, pitching... I think it's the other force. Just keep our opponent off of coloured mana. Okay, so we can either play an Endurance or an Ice-Fang. So let's pass the turn with both of those as options. We can't Ice-Fang into a counterspell though. Okay, they found a mana source. Let's see how bad it is for us. Seasoned Dungeoneer. Okay. A swamp in the reveal card zones. Do we want to draw a card here, or do we want to make a bigger creature? I think we make the bigger creature here. Do we want these cards in our opponent's graveyard? Does it matter if they're in their graveyard? If they do a fetch land, it means they got a load of dead draws to shuffle in. Alright. So attacks, this will be a 4/5 on attack, so they can't block it. Well, they can, but they'll lose their Seasoned Dungeoneer. We get the initiative here. We get ourselves a white source, I think. Count this planes and pass a turn. So our opponent doesn't get to forge before combat, which is pretty nice for us. There's a swamp we know about. An Evoked Grief. Would I rather have an Endurance here or an Ice-Fang? If we cast an Ice-Fang and it hits into... An Ice-Fang into... Actually, we need to see which way they stack the triggers, right? We're not counterspelling this. So let's see which way they stack the triggers. If they stack the triggers the wrong way around. No. Okay. So, would we rather have an Endurance in play or an Ice-Fang here that might be able to find a plow? Problem is, if we find anything other than a plow, then it's gone. I think we just want the meatiest thing on board here. We don't need to target anyone there. We want cards in our graveyard for purposes of... I guess we brought it out the hero, actually, didn't we? I think we still got Become... Do we have Become events? No, we don't. Right. So they took our last card. Grief goes away. They've got one card in hand. Is it Reanimate? It's another Seasoned Dungeoneer. Okay. So this will forge up their current Seasoned Dungeoneer. Attacking with this. Sure. A Polluted Delta into the hand. We can't block these. Misty Rainforest. This can give us a Dryad Arbor. So we can attack for 2 and guarantee getting the initiative here and putting our opponent dead on board. I think that's probably what we need to do here. So block one of them. Sure. We get the other city. So we can forge up. I don't think that helps. I think we need to Lust Well here. Although if we go into Forge, we definitely kill them with Trap next turn if they attack. That's interesting. So we take 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. We are just dead next turn, aren't we? Yeah, we don't actually have a way out of this. Put on the bottom, put on the bottom. Yeah, so our opponent here, they attack with both of their guys. As long as they stack their triggers correctly, I can't block them. And then they do the trap for the final points damage. Alright. So they got 10 already, so we're dead. Oh, I hate the initiative. Alright, I think we were very close to winning that game on multiple axes there. I don't think making the Ice-Fang is the right play. We might have been able to get a dress down out of it if we'd have gone further into our deck, but we wouldn't have had the Endurance, so our opponent would be on... I guess they could have traded this for... Because they're always taking that damage if we attack for 4 there anyway. Yeah. Maybe we're supposed to play the Ice-Fang just to get through our deck more and roll high. Uncertain. Alright, let's go to the final round. We're trying to get a 2-3, I think. Alright, we have Hierarch into Seedshark. We don't have any counter spells, but I think this is okay. We can always overpay with Prismatic Ending to make a bigger Seedshark as well. We can crack this and just get a basic forest for now. Let our opponent not have any idea what we're doing, and also get some more snow cover basics in play for our Ice-Fangs if we need them as removal. Snow-covered plains, interesting. Okay, a Force of Will now is nice. But we don't have a blue card to go with it. Are we supposed to wait for a blue card to cast this shark? We can get a 2-drop. We could just get an Ice-Fang and redraw here. I don't hate that. So if we go and get ourselves Snow-Covered Island. Let's go and get a redraw here. Another Prismatic Ending. Alright. Hope our opponent plays some things to the board. White mana might mean that, or it might mean that they're like a slow control deck. Okay. Might be looking at some sort of initiative type thing going on here. Or it could just be the humans deck. But it's very weird to play the humans deck and not have a 1-drop. So they have 3 here. If they play a Petal, I might force the Petal. And then we can pending the Chrome Mox. Magus of the Moon. Alright, that's not going to be great against what we're doing here. I guess they got Spirit Guy. We're kind of going to get done in a little bit here. Oh wow, they're really not playing anything here. Oh, you're going to have a bad time, opponent. If we can draw a blue card as well, that'd be excellent. Oh my god, we did draw a blue card. Go and get ourselves a basic Plains. What is this? Aven Mind Sensor. Do I care enough about Aven Mind Sensor? Like, it's irritating, but honestly, I think that's fine. Oh my god, we found the exact thing we were going to find anyway. Love it when a plan comes together. Okay, the Seedshark. And we'll attack with our Death Toucher. Do want to trade? And we're pending on the Chrome Mox. A powerful 2-for-1 there. Well, it's actually a 3-for-1 because we get a guy out of it as well. Feels like we are doing a-okay here. Our opponent's got 1 card more in hand, or 2 cards more in hand than us, but we've got Force of Will and a much superior board presence and a removal spell to hoover something up. Are we supposed to counter this? I don't think so. Would have a second one, maybe. Human creature spell for 3 mana. What is this going to be? An elite spellbinder. Sure. I have a wealth of riches here, opponent. I've taken the Seedshark, so I can't pitch it to the Force of Will. A Solitude. But we're probably losing the Seedshark here. Opponent's down to 1 card in hand. What are we going to find? A Wasteland. Sure. We will Wasteland away the thing we can Wasteland. We will transform our guy. We will attack with our little guy for 2 and hold back Ice-Fang to block their guys. At some point we can cast a Seedshark. Right, so found an Ancient Tomb. That's not nothing. They're going to attack with just the Mind Sensor. Attacking with both. Sure. I will take this block. What are we going to find? A Tundra. So we can hold up Force of Will here. The mana source being one that hurts them is pretty good for us. We've got hardcast Force of Will. We've got Seedshark with a blue sword, with a blue card in hand. We can do some good stuff with that. It's going to be Seasoned Engineer. Yep, we have to say no to this one. Blue, blue. They know we have the Force of Will here, but they just have to kind of push through, I guess. And it's better us casting it now than when they have the when we have the Seedshark in play. And we're incentivized to play the Seedshark now. Our opponent's hellbent. Alright, our opponent's just scooping up there. They've had enough. Now the question is, will our opponent board in Magus of the Moon? Or board in more moons? I don't think they will. So I like Source of Plowshares, obviously, in this matchup. Dress Down is certainly interesting as well. Things that block flyers feel pretty useful here. Outland Liberator sometimes has text. Tarmogoyf is okay. So these things are maybes. I don't think we want the Cold-Eyed Selkie. It's not really going to be able to get any damage in. I don't think we need Become Immense and Invigorate either. Are we supposed to board out Glenn? We haven't done anything with Glenn yet, which is a pity. I don't think we want Misdirection either. But like, what else comes out here, right? It is just the Glenn swapping out for a 3-drop. I kind of like Uro as a thing that we can just... I guess the Hexdrinker is not great here, actually, because it just runs into a lot of their guys. The Force of Negations are... go on then. We'll leave a Glenn in instead of a Force. Because there's not that many things. Actually, let's have 2 Glens in. Why not? Let's just try it. Invigorate is kind of interesting in the fact that we can use it to push through blockers or mess with their combat maths. Pending is okay for blowing up Chrome Moxes, and they have 3 drops that we can kill. So I think we submit like this. I don't think we're supposed to have these Glens in the deck for this, but it's the last round of the night. Let's see if we can get a Glenn doing some stuff. We did get the thing with Cold-Eyed Selkie, which is basically the same as Glenn for us. So there is that. We have a Force of Will, and we have a Brainstorm that's been asked to do a bit of work, but I think that's okay. I think we will keep this one. We have a Glenn, maybe we'll keep it. Maybe that will be our plan. Let's see how our opponent approaches this. Chance of the Void is probably coming in here. I think we have to force this. And should we give Glenn a chance? Let's give Glenn a chance. That force might just run into a Cavern of Souls later on, so it's not necessarily bad to use on something like that. Alright, I think we'll play out this land for Brainstorm purposes and see if we can find a land. I'd rather cast it next turn when we get max value, but depending on what our opponent does, we might need to have our dress down up. What nonsense are we looking at here? Anointed Peacekeeper. I think we'll Brainstorm a response. Okay, we're going to put this on top so they don't name it, because that would be bad for us. We'll keep the Wasteland in hand. So one card's got to go on top here. Let's put the Uro on top. That's a later thing that we can shuffle away. They might name Wasteland, but we kind of need our Misty Rainforest more than we need our Wasteland. They know about the dress down now, which is not ideal. But I think it's more important to hide our Misty Rainforest so it doesn't get the tax on it. They named the Wasteland. Sure. So they took our bait. Do we want the Uro on top of our library? Probably not, which means we're playing the Misty Rainforest here. Do we want to fetch now before our opponent can do the thing? Yes. What are we getting here? It's probably Savannah, isn't it? Because that gives us our other two colours. And we'll pass with dress down up. So we can dress down any of their guys and draw a card off of it. Take 3, that's not too bad. Let's dress down now. Not sure why our opponent scooped to that, to be honest. Seemed like a weird one to me. But there we are. Alright, so we got a 2-3. I'm not sure about the last one, but I think we were probably going to win that overall. Alright, let's talk about the deck. So, Chromehost Seedshark was better in this deck than it was in the one I played before. I think this deck is kind of slightly more tailored to it. You know, we've got a bunch of X spells that we can dump extra mana into. We've got the Become Immense and Invigorate. We've got a lot of Force of Will, Misdirection, Force of Negation. We've got a lot of that sort of effect. So that's kind of interesting. And the 3-drop it's sort of vying for competition with, in terms of which one you play out, is like the Glenn/Cold-Eyed Selkie. So they kind of don't... like, if one's obviously going to be better than the other one, then you can just jam that. It's not like the other deck I was playing where it was running Baral, so both of your things wanted you to have your Force of Will afterwards. If we use our Force of Will, then we just play the other guy instead. So it's kind of fine. As for this deck, I will say I really missed having Ponder. I also think Pending instead of Swords in the main deck is a little bit... I understand why it's here, because we can scale it with mana and make bigger Chromehost Seedshark tokens. So I don't hate that as a thing. We never did Become Immense. That wasn't a thing we did. We did hardcast Invigorate to make a big guy. That was pretty cool. And obviously Become Immense, there were definitely turns where if we draw it, we win the game. So there is definitely some use to that card for sure. I'm not sure I want Hexdrinker. I don't think it's that good. I think if that was another Ice-Fang, I'd probably just be happier. I think Ice-Fang's just really good. And that kind of covers us for not having the Source to Plowshares by having another Ice-Fang in the deck a bit more. So that's probably where I'd look. I don't think Misdirection is good enough either. So turn that into another Ice-Fang. You've got 4 Ice-Fangs in there. Boom. There you go. Your 2-drop slot is looking a lot healthier then. I know we ideally want to skip the 2-drop slot, but we do only have 4 guys. So let's say if we move these 2 over in here, we got 4 Ice-Fangs there. That would be what I would want to change with this deck. Weirdly, the Cold-Eyed Selkie was pretty fine. Like, we knew what he was going to do, right? It was just going to attack and draw us cards, and it did that. If our opponent had an answer for it, sure, but that's like with any creature, right? It's just Shadow Mage Infiltrator that scales up, and we did scale up, and we drew 2 cards every time. So that's pretty nice. Is this deck going to be like smashing any tournaments anytime soon? I don't think so. I think we are slightly pulling in multiple directions here, right? I understand the theory. The idea is, our things that draw us lots of cards mean that we can pitch cast loads of spells, like Force of Will, Force of Negation, etc., which is good with Chromehost Seedshark. But if you're hitting your opponent and drawing a load of cards with like your 3-drops, your Glenn or your Selkie, then you're probably doing all right, and you don't necessarily need the Seedshark. And if you've got the Seedshark and you make a 5/5 off of a Force of Will, that's usually going to get you there anyway. So it kind of feels like we've got two decks that have a little bit of overlap, but maybe leaning further into either one of them would be better. So maybe going more into the Glenn route, so having more Glens and Cold-Eyed Selkies, and then having access to things like Ponder and Swords to Plowshares to smooth out your draws. Maybe a Stoneforge Mystic to put some equipment on might be useful. Something like a Jitte is pretty good on the Glen because you can attack. They can't block it, and then before damage you can pump it and get loads of cards. So Jitte has a mode that is remove a counter, draw 2 cards when it's on a Glen or a Selkie, which is pretty nice. Maybe that's somewhere you could go with this. I think there's several different directions you could pull in here. I'm not convinced we need all of these sideboard tools. I don't think we need the Tarmogoyf, for example. And I wouldn't mind having a main deck Endurance. That would be interesting to me as a thing. Where you fit it in, I'm not entirely sure. We're a Green Sun Zenith deck, so we can probably find space for it somewhere. We did kind of get jammed up drawing a lot of lands in a couple of games, and we definitely lost rounds because of that, which is the downfall of not playing Ponder in a blue deck. So if we'd have had the Ponders, we might have been able to smooth our draws a little bit better. We might even be able to trim down our land count if we're playing Ponders. So we could maybe cut the Ancient Tomb for a Ponder, maybe one other land for a Ponder is possible, because we do have those Hierarchs as well. And our curve does pretty much stop at 3. We're not really cast. I guess, you know, sometimes we cast it in the Green Sun Zenith, but Ponders do cover a multitude of sins, and they certainly mean that you lose to your own deck less. So I wouldn't mind having those in there. And they will also fuel the Euro, which we didn't necessarily have a lot of food for when the time came. So if you were to go down like the full-on Glen route, you could also move some of these plows out of the board into the main, which then gives you more room in your sideboard for other tools, so we can go up in Carpet of Flowers perhaps for those sorts of matchups. And if we're getting rid of Tarmogoyf, we might be able to find some other interesting silver bullets to include. I think we've got most of the big ones, like the Liberator and the Ouphe and the Endurance are the big ones, but we might be able to find some more. Could go pretty interesting with something like a Questing Beast. That's always a fun haymaker to go over the top with people with. So there's definitely some options in this deck. Even though we only went T3, I think this deck has some legs on it. The variants we need to kind of stamp out a little bit by running some more Ponders, I think, which is, you know, oh, you're running a blue deck, run Ponders, Brainstorms, etc. But there's a reason for that. You know, they are just really good. I'd be interested to see what the Glenn heavier build would be, more than I would be to see the Seedshark heavier build. Because I think the Seedshark heavier build is going to be Ancient Tombs to try and make your Seedshark on turn 2 with either your Hierarchs or your Ancient Tombs. So you've got 8 ways of accelerating yourself to a turn 2 Seedshark, but then you also need something else in that similar mana slot. So maybe you're looking at Echo of Eons, Lion's Eye Diamond, Hull Breacher. So your 8 3-drops are Hull Breacher and Chromehost Seedshark. And obviously, if you have Chromehost Seedshark in play and cast Echo of Eons, you're making a 6/6 guy. And you can also use the mana from the Lion's Eye Diamond later on in the game if you happen to have one to do it. So I think there is a Seedshark deck that's more all in, which is going to be a better Seedshark deck. And I think there's a better Glenn deck here. So I think going either of those routes would be preferable, and I'd really be interested to see what that looks like. This is a donation deck, so I'm hoping the donor is pleased with how I've done today, and maybe that they'll build the Seedshark and Glenn decks and maybe send it in one time. We'll see. I'd be interested to see how they pan out. Whether or not I have the time to brew it myself, I don't know. But there we are. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're interested in my Patreon, there's a link underneath. You can do the basic tier, which is just to give me a couple of dollars a month to say thank you for making content. But there's another tier that you can do that should be live now, which will give you access to my incredibly detailed Green-Black Turbo Depths primer, which I think it's about 30 odd pages, 30ish pages with sideboard guides to matchups, loads of discussion of what the deck does, how it plays, why we're not playing certain cards, etc, etc. So if that's your sort of jam, I think it's a pretty good guide. So you might want to have a look at that one. And it will be updated relatively regularly for people who are part of that 2020 specialist tier of my Patreon. All right, I think that's enough plugging and enough legacy today, and I'm going to go to bed. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.